Thank you. Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Management, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Technology and Innovations, members of the University Governing Council, the Registrar, the Bursar, the University Librarian, the Provost, College of Health Sciences, Deans of faculties, especially my Dean, the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Directors of various units, Professors and other members of the Senate, Heads of Department, particularly whoever is standing in for the Head of Department of Islamic Law here today. The same Honorable Justices from the High Court and Honorable Qadis from the Sharia Court of Appeal, distinguished Muslim scholars and all other invited guests, members of staff teaching and non-teaching, uni-learning students, especially my student of the Faculty of Law in the Beta Biafra University. My dear wives, children, and all other family members here present, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me to commence this lecture by quoting two prominent world citizens. Of all the many ways of organizing banking, the worst is the one we have today, said by Mervyn King, Governor of the Bank of England, 2003 to 2013. And the second quote is from Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR, President, Federal Republic of Nigeria from 1999 to 2007. All that we had borrowed up to 1985 or 1986 was around $5 billion. And we have paid about $16 billion. Yet, we are still being told that we owe about $28 billion. That $28 billion came about because of the injustice in the foreign creditors' interest rate. If you ask me what is the worst thing in the world, I will say it is interest. The first quote underscores the need for radical reforms in the way conventional banking is organized the world over, while the latter is just the tip of the iceberg of how interest-based financial system could wreak havoc on the economy of a nation. Surprisingly, these are not coming from Muslims, but from non-Muslims who, by virtue of their professional calling and political standing, should know the stark realities. By the special grace of Almighty Allah, I stand before you to deliver the 196th inaugural lecture of this enviable university. It is the 6th from the Faculty of Law and the 3rd in the series from the Department of Islamic Law. The 3 inaugural lecturers from the department so far, including today's lecturer, are all product of one single university, that great university, the Islamic University of Medina in Saudi Arabia. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, by divine arrangement, today's inaugural lecture is the first to be delivered by a professor of Islamic law of banking and finance in the entire West African sub-region. Arguably, Islamic finance has proved to be the most convincing evidence of the viability of economic laws of a religion and their relevance to emerging challenges of the contemporary world. Over the years, Islamic finance has emerged as one of the fastest growing industries in the world, moving from a humble beginning in the early 70s of the last century to total assets of $2.44 trillion, and from just one commercial bank in 1975 to more than 1,389 institutions operating in more than 80 countries. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the conception of today's lecture was an offshoot of my conviction in the course of my research engagement in the past 18 years. Islamic finance represents a unique market where money, law, and religion are the principal players. Law creates an Islamic financial entity and dictates its regulatory framework. Religion determines its compliance with divine injunctions as a variation deterrent, while corporate social responsibility ensures its long-term sustainability and profitability. No other system of banking can boast of such a unique alliance. Hence, the title of today's inaugural lecture, Islamic Financial Services, the Interplay of Religion, Law, and Corporate Social Responsibility. As a value chain, Islamic finance comprises three major components: banking, insurance, and capital market. My academic engagement have traversed all of these three landscapes. My LLM dissertation was on Islamic law of banking. My PhD thesis centered on Islamic capital market, and I was privileged to single-handedly supervise the first ever PhD in Islamic law of insurance from any Nigerian university. Area of practice, I sit on the Financial Regulation Advisory Council of Experts of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I am also a member of the Takaful Advisory Council of the National Insurance Commission, and I have served as advisor to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Currently, I am one of the team of Sharia experts at the major instrument of the capital market, just as I was invited in July 2019 to examine a PhD thesis on Sukuk at the International Islamic University in Malaysia. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, what I am about to share with my audience in this hall today is the accumulation of my experiences so far in serving all of these capacities. This shall also include my contribution to the development of the law and practice of Islamic finance in Nigeria as a Sharia expert and consultant to other national agencies, including the Debt Management Office and the National Pension Commission. My first contact with Islamic finance dates back to 2003, when I found in this emerging specialization what I have always longed for in my career, an academic niche where I can provide practical solutions to socio-economic problems of the society. From ending hunger and poverty to instilling market discipline in commercial practices, promoting responsible production and consumption, and providing affordable housing, better health care, and quality education. Islamic finance, if properly harnessed, is one field that holds the key to all of these and even more for the benefits of mankind. Perhaps an inspirational conversation with the late Dr. Aminuddin Abubakar of Kano played a significant role in shaping my thought the way it played out. He was a usual guest of my alma mater, the Islamic University of Medina, even though he bagged his PhD degree from Bayrou University, Kano, specializing in the Maliki School of Islamic Law. In one of such visits to the university, I found myself in his company, alone with him, for a reason I cannot remember again. And that was the very year I was admitted into the postgraduate school after completing my LLB in the Faculty of Law as the best graduating student with a first-class degree. He warned me against embarking on any research endeavor that neither hands me the pleasure of my creator nor impact positively on the society in which I live. May Almighty Allah have more mercy on Dr. Aminuddin Abubakar. Modern Islamic finance began with the establishment of Dubai Islamic Bank in 1975. Prior to this, there were other attempts to introduce a new financial order that would equally mark a departure from the dominant interest-based system. Uche 2010 was able to identify one of those attempts here in Lagos, Nigeria, under the name of Muslim Bank, incorporated in 1956. But for the non-receptive attitude of the government at that time towards anything Islamic, Nigeria ought to have merited the accolade of housing the first Islamic banking institution anywhere in the world. Alas, that has only added one more episode to our long list of self-truncated achievements on account of religious prejudices. That an Islamic bank existed in Nigeria in that era has further been proved through the judicial record of many court cases, including a case between the bank and the claimant that even went up to the Supreme Court, United Nigeria Insurance Company and Muslim Bank West African Limited. That was a Supreme Court case. Other milestones in the evolution of modern Islamic finance, including the establishment in 1979 of an Islamic insurance company in Khartoum, Sudan. Today, there are more than 300 Islamic insurance companies operating in 45 countries. Africa shall forever remain proud as the birthplace of Islamic insurance, being one of the major financial inventions of the 20th century. For close to 2 decades, the global practice of Islamic finance remained without its third building block, Islamic capital market. In the 1990s, Malaysia took the bold step of issuing the first Islamic capital market instrument through an international oil company, Shell Malaysia, in 2009. In 2009, General Electric became the first company in the United States of America to issue a corporate sukuk. In 2007, our dear country, Nigeria, joined the League of Sovereign Sukuk Issuers in the world, 3 years after the government of the United Kingdom had issued its first sovereign sukuk. And just last month, in March this year, the UK government issued another sovereign sukuk of £500 million, more than double the size of the first issuance, and was also oversubscribed. The creation of the International Islamic Liquidity Management Corporation in 2010 is another milestone in the development of institutions of Islamic finance worldwide. It is my pleasure, Mr. Vice Chancellor, to inform this gathering that the new CEO of this global institution, Dr. Omar Osei, is a graduate of this university and indeed from my department. Profits, loss, and risk in Islamic finance. The golden principle of Islamic commercial activities is that benefit goes with damage, while revenue follows liability. The risk taken by each party to a contract is the only license for its entitlement to profit. Where a party is shielded from the loss in an investment, whatever it claims as profit resulting from same is nothing but prohibited interest. The claim that profit and interest are similar to one another has been debunked more than 1,000 years ago. Almighty Allah says, and I quote, "Those who hate riba will not stand on the day of resurrection, except as stand one whom Shaitan, the devil, by his touch, has driven into madness." That is because they say trade is like riba, permits trading, but for me forbids interest. Under Islamic financial transactions, risk-taking is central to legitimate returns on an investment, and any attempt to separate ownership of an asset from its associated risk is therefore objectionable in the eyes of the law. Narrated on the authority of Abdullah ibn Amr, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has declared that unlawful, as clear as unlawful, any profit arising where the party is not liable for loss. It has long been settled under Islamic law there are no risks where there is no real ownership. Ownership that is contemplated by Sharia could be complete or incomplete, and the 3 parameters for determining corpus, the use of wealth, and the usage of the property in question. Alaro 2016a observed that while this classification has ignored for centuries under Islamic law, the introduction of the English law classification of ownership into legal and beneficial posed a new challenge to Islamic law practitioners, particularly in the area of asset transfer as a condition for the validity of certain Islamic financial products. After a study of large number of sukuk issuances around the world, Alaro 2016 was able to identify instances where the asset transfer is fictitious. An example of this is where the contract bars the sukuk holders from having recourse to the underlying asset, even when the obligor is in clear default. Again, where nothing is said about the business environment, the risk factor, the revenue sources, and the debt profile of the issuer, the tax regime, and the overall macroeconomic indicators of the country of issuance. All that may also speak volume of the real intention behind the Sukuk issuance in such a situation. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the circumstantial introduction of legal and beneficial ownership concept into the practice of Islamic finance has given rise to many complexities, and the danger it represents for the industry manifested itself clearly in a case that too Nik Mahmoud and Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad, where the Malaysian Court of Appeal held that sale of land in accordance with the Islamic banking concept of BBA did not contravene the Malay Reservation Enactment, which prohibits transfer of any right or interest in reservation land to any person not being a Malay. The respondent, Bank Islam Malaysia, even though a registered Malaysian bank, is not a Malay citizen. In arriving at his decision, the court by Abdul Malik Ahmad, Justice of the Court of Appeal, declared inter alia, the question arises as to whether the property purchase agreement confers on the respondent any registered title in the properties. There is no evidence to show that there was a counterpart. My research focus at PhD was the challenges posed by credit risk in Islamic capital market and the Sharia legal responses to that. This afforded me an opportunity to contribute to finding solutions to issues connected with credit risk management in the entire Islamic financial sector. In a paper presented at a conference hosted by the Central Bank of Sudan and later published in Saudi Arabia by the High Impact Journal of Islamic Economic Studies, I presented a fiqh-based analysis of debt for asset swapping as a Sharia-compliant alternative to the controversial debt sale regime. The only issue to be determined by the respective Sharia committee of every institution is what tangible receivable ratio would be acceptable for tradability in the secondary market. Is it 51% tangible and 49% receivables, according to OIC Islamic Fiqh Academy, or 33% tangible and 67% receivables, according to the Bahrain-based IOFI, or 80% tangible and 20% receivables, according to Alaro 2011. The fulcrum here is to decide in which of these ratios can the tangible asset and the receivables be said to be dominant and negligible, respectively, based on the Sharia maxim that says whatever is ancillary in fact is also auxiliary in law. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, most financial facilities of Islamic banks have elements of promises embedded in them. The banks need to be sure that they will find interested buyers, lessees or off-takers before they embark on procurement of assets. Drawing from legal expositions of the binding and non-binding promises in both classical and contemporary Sharia literature, Alaro 2017b opines that promises in the context of financial transactions should be binding on the promisors, as the industry can hardly survive without that. This is premised on the position held by the Maliki jurists to the effect that a unilateral promise on which the promisee had relied and thereby altered his position becomes binding on the promisor alone. Islamic finance and corporate social responsibility. In the time past, whenever the discourse on social and environmental responsibility of a business entity is brought to the fore, the question has always been whether a company should choose between doing good business and being good company. However, recent studies have shown that being a good company contributes immensely to doing good business. Environmental, social, and governance has become a powerful filtering mechanism for high net worth investors in deciding where to put their money, just as consideration for CSR has become a strong parameter for efficient and effective corporate governance of a business entity. Having identified Islamic social finance as the appropriate vehicle for executing CSR projects in the Islamic banking and financial sector, my contribution in this regard focuses on promoting conducive legal and regulatory environment for the CSR to thrive in the Islamic financial space. In the paper I presented at the 2018 International Sharia Scholars Forum, I identified a number of legal and regulatory issues that may hinder or facilitate the practice of Islamic social banking and finance. The form of incorporation of an Islamic social and financial entity may pose legal and regulatory challenges for its smooth operation. While most of these institutions will prefer to be incorporated as a not-for-profit foundation, it may be better to consider a different option. Incorporating a social financial entity as a company limited by guarantee will give it more freedom in profit-generating ventures without necessarily jeopardizing its identity as a social financial institution. Islamic Social Finance, Financial Inclusion, and Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The Sustainable Development Goals represent a universal call to end poverty, protect the planet, and improve the lives and prospects of all human beings. To ensure that the 17 goals and 169 targets of the SDGs are met by 2030 as planned, it is estimated that funds up to $2.5 trillion are needed every year. Interestingly, worldwide estimated value of up to $1 trillion in 2018. What this implies is that zakat alone, representing just one component of Islamic social finance, can provide more than 1/3 of the needed funds for the realization of SDGs in developing countries. What an incredible potential for fighting hunger and reducing poverty in the world. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, in February last year, 2020, I was invited to the University of London to take part in the annual SOAS public lecture and workshop, a yearly event that allows a select group of around 30 leading Sharia scholars, economists, legal practitioners, bankers, and academics to gather for a day-long closed-door discussion on an important contemporary theme within the field of Islamic finance. The 2020 discussion focused on Islamic social finance and sustainable development goals and was from Harvard University. Similarly, in 2018, I presented also on a special invitation a lead paper on Islam, economic growth, and sustainable development at the 3rd International Conference of the Department of Islamic Studies, Nasarawa State University, Kefi, Nigeria. In that paper, I highlighted many Islamic law principles that can be very useful in steering the global effort towards sustainable development and realization of the SDGs. These include Sharia legal maxims, such as no one has a license neither for harming himself nor for inflicting hardship on others. La darara wa la dirar. And in the removal of the public harm, private injury may be tolerated. يتحمل الضرر الخاص لدفع الضرر العام. Contributions of Islamic finance to the Nigerian economy. There is ample evidence that series of significant improvements have taken place in the percentage of the financially included population in the country since Islamic financial services were introduced. For instance, in 2018, the bank population stood at 39.5 million, up from 36.9 million recorded in 2016. While 60% of the Nigerian adult population have since become financially included. The situation was worse in 2010, as the survey then revealed that 25.4 million Nigerians, representing only 30% of the adult population, were banked in Nigeria. Infrastructure development. The Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA, gave an assessment of the infrastructure deficit in Africa as follows. The road access rate in Africa is only 34%, compared to 50% in other parts of the 100% higher. Only 30% of Africa's population have access to electricity, compared to 70 to 90% in other parts of the developing world. Water resources are grossly underused, with only 5% of agriculture under irrigation. And the estimated cost for closing this huge gap is around $360 billion US dollars. This cost is definitely what naturally imposes on us the search for alternative source of funding for remedying the infrastructure deficit in Nigeria and other countries on the continent. The idea of using Sukuk to develop infrastructure in Nigeria was actually conceived under the former President Goodluck Jonathan, but the political will was not strong enough to bring the beautiful idea to fruition. In 2017, the present administration under President Muhammadu Buhari took the bull by the horn by issuing the first sovereign sukuk worth 100 billion naira. To the admiration of all Nigerians across ethnic and religious divides, sukuk is today a major instrument for developing key economic roads in all the six geopolitical zones of the country. Having seen the huge success recorded in the maiden exercise, the federal government of Nigeria returned to the sukuk market in 2018 and even in 2020. In May 2020, the third FGN sukuk worth 150 billion naira was offered for subscription. The offer attracted an oversubscription rate of 446%. 446%. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, it is a source of joy for me and of pride for the University of Ilorin that I am one of the 7-man committee that assess the Sharia compliance of this sukuk on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria. Prior to this experience, Osun State, a neighboring state, had earlier issued 11.4 billion naira sukuk to develop state-of-the-art public schools across the state. I was also privileged to be one of the Sharia advisors to Securities and Exchange Commission in approving the Osun sukuk in 2013. Currently, we are working as a team on the first ever corporate sukuk in Nigeria to be issued by a company, Family Homes Funds Limited, and it is to be used for massive production of affordable housing units for Nigerians, irrespective of their religious affiliations. And these are the pictures of some of those roads that were either constructed or rehabilitated with federal government of Nigeria sukuk in 2017, 2018, and 2020. There are also pictures of those schools, some of those schools that were developed in Osun State using sukuk fund as well. My contribution to the law and practice of Islamic finance in Nigeria. The Central Bank of Nigeria established in 2012 the Financial Regulation Advisory Council of Experts as an independent body of jurists to advise the bank on the operations of non-interest financial institutions in Nigeria. Since its inception, I have been not just a member of the council, but also a member of its technical subcommittee. The council's achievements over the years can be summarized in the following lines. Product approval and development. Since inauguration, Phrase has reviewed and approved more than 80 products that are now being used by the various non-interest banks and other financial institutions in the country. In doing this, the Council has recorded many landmark resolutions that have universal impact on the non-interest banking sector in the country. The resolution on the non-permissibility of commission on turnover, COT, being charged by NIFIS in Nigeria was ruled that where a conventional bank has been licensed to operate in non-interest window, the deposit in non-interest bank account cannot be used as part of the cash reserve ratio for conventional operations of the parent bank. This is to ensure that no commingling of interest-based and non-interest funds occurs in the system. In 2015, the Council prepared a position paper on the use of earnest deposit in non-interest banking, which was later circulated to banks and in Nigeria and even some international regulatory agencies. Also, through a phrase resolution, the Advisory Council Committee of Experts in each non-interest financial institution in Nigeria was empowered to monitor and periodically report to phrase the disbursement of non-permissible income, NPI, unintentionally generated by those banks to charitable purposes. NPI in an Islamic bank usually comes from sources like pre-licensing interest paid by the regulator, penalties for customers' default or late payment, interest accruals ordered by a court of competent jurisdiction, etc. But under no circumstance must an Islamic bank benefit from non-permissible incomes. Federal Government of Nigeria Developmental Intervention Schemes. The federal government of Nigeria has introduced through CBN a number of intervention schemes to address the funding gap in agriculture, power, healthcare, MSMEs, and other key sectors of the economy. Accessing these funds is through the licensed commercial banks, and since the schemes are interest-based, the non-interest banks became effectively barred from participating. Having realized these unintended consequences and the injustice it may inflict on many innocent Nigerians, the CBN management requested from FRACE to develop interest-free but economically viable alternatives. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me to announce here that after months of painstaking research and rigorous academic brainstorming, we were able to come up with Sharia-compliant, non-interest versions. The biggest joy I personally derived from this exercise arose from an encounter I had with a young man financing initiative, CIVI, because of his religious belief in a country where freedom of religion is constitutionally guaranteed. As at that time, CIVI was not part of the interventions we were already working on, but I took it upon myself to make a case for this fellow Nigerian and several others in his position at the next meeting of the FRACE subcommittee working on the FGN-CBN interventions. We got approval to fashion out a non-interest version of this very youth-friendly initiative, and today it is accessible to every interested Nigerian. I thank Almighty Allah for using me and others to make that happen. Takaful Advisory Council is to insurance in Nigeria what FRACE is to banking. My appointment to serve on this National Council dates back to 2015. One major achievement of TAC, and indeed of the introduction of Takaful or Islamic insurance into the mainstream insurance business in Nigeria, is the unprecedented distribution of surplus to participants after settlement of all claims. Unlike the conventional insurance that Nigerians were familiar with, whatever remains as underwriting surpluses in Takaful belongs to the policyholders themselves and not to the insurance company. As at the end of 2018, the two full-fledged Takaful insurance companies in Nigeria, Noor Takaful and Jais Takaful, distributed 12 million and 17 million naira respectively as the year's surplus. In August 2020, Noor Takaful alone distributed another 15 million naira surplus for the 2019 financial year. Presently, the number of licensed Takaful companies in Nigeria has risen to 4 full-fledged and 2 window operators, while my colleagues and I at TAC have reviewed and approved till date more than 110 products for Takaful entities in Nigeria. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, my experience in Sharia boardrooms has taught me to pay attention to details, particularly when we sit with experts from diverse backgrounds. We sit with lawyers, economists, bankers, sometimes with engineers. In one of the sessions of FGN Sukuk, I discovered that we were all talking about one issue, but with almost opposite concepts. When the engineers from the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing spoke about a milestone completion of a section of the road, they meant any particular scope of work being completed, which may imply any of the following: shaping and compacting, sub-base costs, base costs, binder costs, wearing costs, etc. But when bankers talked about the same milestone completion, they only meant that had been completely utilized, regardless of the level of physical completion. Interestingly, neither of these would be the intention when a Sharia scholar speaks of milestone completion. The structure we approve for FGN Sukuk is a Ijara contract, which shall mean that every portion completed is usable and leasable. My background as both a Sharia scholar and a legal practitioner prompted me to query the validity of leasing an asset that is not and shall not be in a tenantable condition throughout the lifespan of the Sukuk investment. Based on this intervention, it was resolved that henceforth the scope of work in every completed mileage of Sukuk roads in Nigeria must be such that shall make this concerned mileage usable and leasable for the purpose of Sukuk contract. contributions at the individual private level. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, in 2018, society's intention of constructing blocks of student hostels and will want me to develop for them a suitable Islamic financial product that can achieve two separate objectives: raising the capital of the project through a public offering or private placement, and constituting the project itself into a money-making investment for the society. What further makes the proposed structure a bit complex is the fact that neither does the society have enough capital to execute the project, nor does it even own the land on which the blocks of hostel will be constructed. It shall enter into a build, operate, transfer BOT agreement with the University of Ilorin authorities, which shall ultimately transfer the ownership of both the land and the hostels to the university after 21 years. I went straight to the drawing board, and after considering a number of possible structures, I came up with 15-year tenured istisna sukuk with a size of 300 million naira. The expected rate of return is 35 to 40% for sukuk holders and 54 to 60% for the obligor, Al Burhan Multipurpose Cooperative. The structure, as detailed in its transaction document, took cognizance of the university reversionary interest in the land and the hostels based on the initial BOT agreement, and that necessitated the introduction of two sets of istisna underlying contracts with varying tenure. At a particular stage of implementation, an ijara contract shall be necessary to ensure that the asset is able to generate incomes necessary as returns on investment. To safeguard the interests of sukuk investors, the structure mandates the obligor to create and incorporate a special purpose vehicle, Al Burhan Sukuk 1 Limited, who shall act as trustees for the sukuk holders in line with the trust to be declared on the underlying assets. This structure can be replicated with necessary modifications for capital projects on campuses of all Nigerian universities, but please kindly note. And this is the chart detailing the contractual obligations, duties, and rights of all parties to the contract. Human Vice Chancellor, sir, I have traversed every part of this country to educate, train, and enlighten Nigerians on the operations, opportunities, and challenges of the Islamic financial system. From Ilorin to Enugu, to Kaduna, Kano, and Keffi, as well as Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, and Ibadan. I have also been an unsalaried financial consultant to non-interest cooperative societies in Osun, Ogun, Kogi, and Kwara State, to mention but a few. All of these I joyfully do to keep faith with a popular adage in the Sharia circles that says, the best way to pay zakat on the knowledge acquired is to impart same to others. This is in addition to formal teaching and training of hundreds of law students, bankers, insurance experts, and members of the governing boards of related supervisory or regulatory agencies. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I read an online article published in 2017 under the title, "The 11 highest paying jobs that are disappearing in the US." As a stakeholder, I quickly retired to my private study and asked myself this question: what can I contribute to save my own discipline from either outright extinction or relative loss of relevance that await a lot of academic specializations as we have them today? Thus, in my paper titled LLB Common and Islamic Law, Curriculum, and the Labor Market, Prepare Our Graduates for New Opportunities and Challenges, Alaro 2018C, I identified multiple emerging opportunities for graduates of the combined honors degree in the Islamic financial labor market. Arising directly from these, and as the current head of the Department of Islamic Law, my colleagues and I in the department have developed up to 18 new courses, which are currently awaiting necessary approvals for introduction as part of our LLB required and elective courses. My stint at King Fahd Quran Complex Academy in Saudi Arabia afforded me the opportunity to serve a wide range of the Muslim Ummah beyond Nigeria. Then, as head of African Translations Units, I supervised either the original translation or the review of existing translations of the Noble Quran into Anko, Fulfude, Fulani, Hausa, Tamazigh, and Yoruba, among others. I oversaw the audio translation of the last part of the glorious book into different African languages, and I personally did the Yoruba version of the audio translation, which was accomplished by the grace of Almighty Allah in just one day. Not only that, the management of the Quran in its wisdom assigned me the role of supervising the translation of a work produced by a group of erudite professors into several European and Asian languages. As at the time I left Medina in 2008, the work titled Usul al-Iman fi Dawi al-Kitab wa Sunnah had been successfully translated into English, French, Azerbaijan, Bangladeshi, and Indonesian languages. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, it is also my pleasure to mention here that the English translation of the work, which was published in 455 pages in 2000, was single-handedly done by me. Yoruba translation without challenges, and mine, life with success, has never been without challenges, and mine is not an exception. Perhaps the biggest challenge I faced in my career was the false allegation, blackmailing, and calumny in 2011 in respect of the Yoruba translation of the meaning of the Noble Quran. The arrowhead, unfortunately an ignorant like myself, is someone I hitherto respected as an elder. Glory be to God. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise, and I thank Almighty Allah for sparing my life to expose the lies fabricated against my person and that of my co-editor of that translation, the late Dr. Ibrahim Abdul Baki Muhammad. May Allah have mercy on him. Invited to do the job by the publishers and copyright owners, and together we did an extensive and internationally acclaimed review, capable of handing us another postgraduate degree if we had so intended, but chose not in expectation of the ultimate reward from Almighty Allah. Some of the principal actors then even went to the extent of claiming maliciously that I was awarded my PhD degree based on the work, and even demanded that the degree be withdrawn. In protest against this, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, and to further assert my intention of seeking only the pleasure of the Almighty in what I did to serve my nation, language, and people, I have since even refused to include the work as part of my academic publications in all my CVs up to this moment. Glory be to Allah. The truth is known today, and I want to use this opportunity to say that I have forgiven all those responsible for this unfortunate and absolutely needless attack. Just as I shall never cease to appreciate and pray for all those who stood firmly for truth and justice, despite all intimidations and inducement to act contrarily. In this respect, the late Chief Imam of Osogbo, Baba Ajisafe, who was then the President General of the League of Imams and Alfas of Yoruba land, deserves to be specifically mentioned. I pray that Almighty Allah also protect his offspring against evil plans at all times. Amen. Conclusion and recommendations. No doubt, Islamic financial services have become part of the DNA of the Nigerian economy. However, for the country to achieve its full potential, Nigeria and Nigerians must embrace Islamic finance with open minds and arms. For this reason, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I would like to conclude this inaugural lecture by putting forward the following recommendations. 1. In addition to the enabling law that is ordained in 2012 to serve on the Central Bank's Financial Regulation Advisory Council of Experts was purely based on merit. I had never met the then CBN governor and the former Emir of Kano, His Highness Muhammad Sanusi II, and he did not know me from Adam. But as Allah will have it, I was introduced by a senior colleague to the management of Jaiz Bank PLC for possible appointment onto the bank's advisory committee of experts, which was about to be constituted. As confirmed to me years later by the then MD CEO of Jaiz Bank, when my CV got to the table of the CBN governor, he simply directed that the candidate with this CV must be reserved for appointment onto the CBN's advisory council. I wonder how many Nigerians we still have around that will behave the same way. Appointing someone he does not know and who is not from his region or tribe to such a coveted post, solely because he believes. Number 7, international organizations like Islamic Development Bank, Islamic Finance, in preparation for opportunities like these whenever they start coming to Africa. Acknowledgements. Becoming a professor certainly means one must have been indebted to many. And I want to use this opportunity to thank all of them as follows. First and foremost, thank Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his countless favors upon me. Despite my limited ability and human deficiency, he, through his mercy, has reserved for me many pioneering roles in my career. I became the first product of my secondary school to be allowed to join the Faculty of Law of the Islamic University of Medina without having to undergo language immersion program, even though Arabic is the medium of instruction. And by the very special grace of ease, city level, in an international university with graduates from 63 different countries. The first Nigerian to ever serve. I became the first to be appointed as a professor, the first to be called to the Nigerian bar as barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court, and the first to hand 2 masters and 2 PhD degrees. Even when I joined this great university, after about 15 years uninterrupted existence of the Faculty of Law, I still became the pioneer postgraduate coordinator for both LLM Common Law and LLM Islamic Law programs. Similarly, the first ever PhD in law awarded in this university from the Department of Jurisprudence and International Law was during my tenure as the faculty's PG coordinator and representative on the university's board of postgraduate studies. 3 years after leaving this office, it was a divine arrangement again, as the first PhD to be awarded in my department, the Department of Islamic Law, in 2014, was also under my supervision. And few years later, I also produced the first ever PhD holder in Islamic insurance, Islamic law of insurance, not just from the University of Ilorin, but from any Nigerian university. Which of the favors of Almighty Allah will I deny? Certainly not. Walhamdulillah. I appreciate my parents, especially my mother, Alaja Asiata Siddiq, who is here present, for planning the simultaneous Western and Eastern education for me, right from my primary school years. This I later learned she did to fulfill the wish of my late father that at least one of his children should specialize in religious studies. Alas, he died some 3 years before the dream could be fulfilled. Even though I lost him, I lost my father, Alhaji Abdul Majid Sambo Alaro, at a very tender age, I enjoyed tremendous goodwill from all who knew him on account of his legendary friendliness and generosity while he was alive. May Almighty Allah admit him to Jannatul Firdaus. I thank my aunt, who is also here seated, Alaja Monerat Popo. She has always stood for us and with us in position of our father since we lost him 45 years ago. In the same vein, I sincerely thank my maternal aunt. They are all here. Alaja Memuna Okiakumu, Alaja Amina Shege, for your great support, love, and prayers always. My teacher, who is also here seated, my mentor, my benefactor, Sheikh Abdullah Jibril Imam Sahban, Hafizahullah, the proprietor of Muhyiddin College of Education and Muhyiddin College of Arabic and Islamic Studies, for ensuring we underwent both Islamic and Western training concurrently. In the 4 universities that I attended at various times, 2 different languages were used as media of instruction. And I from left to right. But the ground for for easy assimilation, mainly contradictory systems, was prepared during my day at Muhyiddin College of Arabic and Islamic Studies. I sat for my Thanawiyya certificate. Admitted down to appreciate my humble contributions to the development of my field. I must remember and thank here the former and current Vice Chancellor of this great university, Professor I.O. Oloyede, OFR, for bringing me to the University of Ilorin. Professor A.G. Ambali, OON, for promoting me twice in my career in this university. And Professor S.A. Abdul Karim, first, for promoting me to the career of Islamic law, and secondly, for his uncommon tolerance whenever I had to argue or debate a religious matter with him. You are worthy of emulation, sir. I equally appreciate the DVCs, the registrar, the bursar, the university librarian, provost, and deans of the various faculties. My teachers at Muhyiddin College, particularly the late Sheikh Suleiman Ahmad Alabere, who endeared to me the study of Islamic law when he taught me the basics of Usul al-Fiqh. Continue to have mercy on him. I am equally Sheikh Amin Ibrahim, Baba Medina, and Ustaz Jami Abdul Salam Alfa Beji for their role in shaping my life and thought right from my secondary school years. I thank Professor Hamza Ishola Abdul Rahim, Dr. Yaqub Yusuf Adana, and all of my teachers at that important stage of education. I remember with prayers the late Alfa Mari Ile Sanu, who was the first to on how to read the Noble Quran. To date, I have attended 4 universities as a full-time student. I sincerely appreciate all my lecturers and supervisors for their sterling mentorship. I specifically thank Professor Abdul Razak Al-Badr, Sulaiman Al-Ruhaili, Mahmoud Qadah, Al-Tayyib Al-Takina, and Doctors Muhammad Zurban, Mahmoud Makki, Muhammad Etudai, and of course, Dr. Sheikh Salih Al-Suhaili, who so much believed in my talent that he ensured that I was retained to work as an assistant professor in the prestigious King Fahd Quran Complex immediately after my PhD, also the first Nigerian to be so retained. There, I had the rare opportunity of working directly with and under some of the most learned academics and seasoned administrators I've ever met in my life, including Professors Salim Shidayid Al-Awfi, Ali Nasser Fakihi, Ahmad Al-Kharrat, V. Abdul Rahim, and the kind-hearted late Alhaji Fudi Kamara, a former minister and former ambassador from the Republic of Guinea, who I succeeded in 2004 as the head of African Translations Unit. I must also, with the greatest respect, mention here the role of the government of Saudi Arabia, on whose scholarship I studied and earned my university degrees from LLB to PhD. I thank all my lecturers at the Nigerian Law School, and particularly Dr. Pastor Emmanuel Olowolani, who was even the first person to call to congratulate me on the day our results were announced. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I thank Honorable Justice Soli Olontoyi Muhammad, the retired Grand Cadi, Professors Y.A. Quadri, Baba Quadri is here, Professor S.A. Kuranga, Professor Yusuf, Alhaji Isaac Abdul Karim Al-Barka, and Dr. Bashir Ali Umar of Bayrou University, Kano, all of whom have played the role of fathers and big brothers in my career to date. My sincere appreciation goes to the Chief Imam of Ilorin, the Imam Mali, the Imam Gambari, and all traditional rulers who are here present. The Oluwo of Owule is here, the Oloruwa of Ororuwa, and the Balugmo of Ofa. I thank the former and national president of IEDPU, Alhaji Ahmed Hadi, and Alhaji Ali Wata, FSI, respectively. I thank every member of my extended family, paternal and maternal. My uncle is here, Alhaji Baba Bakata, the Ubandawaki, the traditional ruler of the entire Bakata quarters in Ilorin, Magaji of Ilialaro, Magaji Ile Baba Pomu, and all Alaros and Baba Pomus, home and abroad. Alhaji Ibrahim Adetuji, my own brother, former NTA Ilorin. Alhaji Musa Adisa, my other brother, and my other siblings, both at Ilialaro and Itakudima. You are all wonderful as brothers and sisters. I vividly remember when as a secondary school student, some of you will take me to your beautiful campus at Akoka. And the man I'm referring to is also here. You will take me to your beautiful campus at Akoka, Lagos, and ask me rhetorically whether I would also like one day to be a university student. Your inspiration and encouragement are paid off. I must also thank Honorable Justice M.A. Hambali, a retired Grand Cadi, of course, the Sharia Court of Appeal, Professor A.Y. Abdul Karim, a former DBC of this university, Malam Yusuf Olaolu Ali, SAN, Alhaji Y.K.O. Abdul Karim, Alhaji Yaya Shola Abdul Hamid, Dr. Ibrahim Gali, Dr. Sabur Gali Alaya, Dr. Hussein Alke Usola, and Sheikh Ishaq Tawil for taking me as one of their biological sons and brothers, respectively. I appreciate all retired and serving Grand Cadis and Cadis of the Kwara State Sharia Court of Appeal who are here today for the love and goodwill I have always enjoyed from them. I thank Honorable Justice Mahmoud Abdul Ghaffar and Honorable Justice I.A. Yusuf, who are all here, of the Kwara State High Court of Justice, for gracing this occasion. I thank my colleagues at CBN Phrase, under the chairmanship of Sheikh Sharif Al-Husseini CON, and NICOM CAC, under the chairmanship of Baba Professor D.O.S. Naibi. I appreciate the management of both the Central Bank of Nigeria and the National Insurance Commission, particularly their delegations who are here today to honor me and my family. Thank you very much. I thank Professor Mashur Baderi of the University of London, Professor Usman Shoaib, the Dean of Law, Bayrou University, Dr. M.K. Imam Tamim, Dr. W.O. Salahuddin, Barrister Taslima Poshile, and Engineer Abu Bakri Abdul Majid Alaro for reading the draft of this lecture and providing very useful suggestions for its improvement. I appreciate the effort of members of the University of Ilorin Library and Publication Committee for their valuable comments that really improved the standard of this lecture. I specifically thank the former and current chairs of the committee, Professor S.F. Hambali and Professor A.K. Salami, respectively. I thank my seniors and colleagues at the Faculty of Law, Professors A.W. Motosho, W.A. SAN, M.M. Akabi, San, VC, Kwara State University, who is here seated. A.A. Oba, R.K. Salman, M.A. Chudai, I.A. Yusuf, I.A. Abdul Qadir, Neema Modupe Abdul Rahim, the next week inaugural lecture, inshallah. H.O. Ijaya, B.A. Omipida, K.I. Adam, O.Y. Abdul, M.K. Adebayo, and Dr. J.O. Olatoke, S.A.N., under whose supervision I cut my professional teeth as a legal practitioner. Thank you, sir. I appreciate all of that academic and non-academic staff of the faculty. I must also remember and appreciate my seniors in the Department of Islamic Law who have retired but not tired, Professor Abdulkadir Zubair and Alhaji YK Sadu. I equally thank Doctors I.S. Ismail, A.A. Owade, Aziza Tamalui, M.K. Imam Tamim, R.O. Ibrahim, T. Abdurrahim, A.H. Falonshaw, and Mr. H.A. Musa, Mrs. B.A. Apata, and Mrs. M.I. Jagede. I appreciate Professor M.O. Yusuf, Dr. S.A. Raji, Dr. Mrs. Medina Abdurrahim, Mala Muhammad Thani Abu Sharafa, Imam Musa Sahdan, Kamaluddin Ibrahim, Mohidin Yusuf, Dr. Kamaluddin Ajidola Kew, Sheikh Abdul Hamid Abu Rayyan, Malam Hussein Kaidi, Abdul Ghani Lawal, Mansour Abu Muhsina, Rashid Sukoya, Saeed Mustafa, Barisa Abdul Wasi Muhammad, Barisa Idris Alao, Mubarak Jibril, Yunus Ulukudu, Idris Abdul Razak, Ishaq Laro Yusuf, and all of my companions, advisors, staff, and students at the Sunnah Academy's Dawah Research and Educational Unit. I thank all my colleagues at the Union of African Muslim Scholars, Quora Muslim stakeholders, Hada Bayanu Linnasi Forum, they are here represented, The Right Path, Saudi Alumni in Nigeria, Muhyiddin O Student Association, and particularly a man that I know will have loved to be here, our late president, Alhaji Ibrahim Hassan Pakoyi, may Allah have more mercy on him, and many other numerous social, cultural, and religious groups to which I belong. My appreciation goes to the chairman, Unilorin Muslim Community, Professor Ibrahim A. Katibi, the former and current chief imam, and other imams, members of the Unilorin Council of Ulama, and the entire Unilorin Emirate and Unilorin Muslim communities. I thank Professor Dawood Delega, Mr. Muhibuddin Tepamesi, and Lukman Bolaji for their immense support throughout my stay in Sudan as a postgraduate student. After bagging all my degrees from Medina on scholarship, I decided to have a second LLM and PhD in a niche area of Islamic law of financial transactions. And I realized there was no better place to actualize my dream than a country that had then declared not just the banking sector to be interest-free, but the entire economy to be interest-free. And the same country that witnessed the birth of Islamic insurance. I appreciate my senior and junior colleagues at the Islamic University of Medina for their continuous show of love. Dr. Sirajuddin Bilal Al-Asra, Professors Muhammad Arsalan, Professor Mansour Ibrahim Sokoto, and Professor Lukman Zakaria, Dr. Imam Tajuddin Bello, Muhammad Sani Rujin Limo, Sharafuddin Raji, Abu Bakr Sani Berimbudu, the Chief Imam of Jigawa today, Abdul Wahab Eleshi, Jalil Alabufa, Saeed Mikail, Colonel Abdul Ali Emekoma, Sheikhs Abdurrahman Olaleka, Abdul Wahab Ajia, Abdul Wahab Nageri, Abdurrahman Olalubosa, and several others that I cannot mention here for lack of sufficient space. I thank my friends and colleagues at various levels of education here in Nigeria. Honorable Justice Abdurrazak Dabo of the Sharia Court of Appeal, Honorable A.G.F. Salahuddin of the Kwara State House of Assembly, Honorable Kabir Olajide Lawal, former member, Lagos State House of Assembly, Malam Abdulhab Muhammad, former chairman, Nigerian Bar Association, Gwagwalada Abuja branch, Dr. A. Yusuf, HOD Islamic Law, Investor of Abuja, Colonel Karim A. Muhammad, Nigerian Army, Ustaz Abdurrahman Sayuti Naqi, my head boy in our secondary school days, and Malam Bilal Hussein, to mention but a few. I appreciate my students, former and informal, from all parts of the world. Associate Professor A. Owade, Dr. T.A. Abdurrahim, Dr. A.M. Babakano, Senior Lecturer, University of Maiduguri, Dr. A.S. Ishola, former HOD Islamic Law Kwasi, Mr. A.A. Onikosi, former Islamic Maiduguri, Dr. A.S. Ishola, former HOD Islamic Law Kwasi, Mr. A.A. Onikosi, former HOD Islamic Law and Hikmah, Mr. K.B. Odediji, lecturer at Uniosun, Mr. Ayuba Abdurazak Dabaji and Hikmah University, Dr. Masoud Abdurrahim of the Federal University, Duse, and Sheikh Abdul Muhmin Abu Bakr Onisi of the Kwara State College of Arabic and Islamic Studies. I would have loved to continue the list, but it is practically impossible for me. May you all continue to grow in your careers. Amen. I thank the staff of the Moran Library of King's College, London. I appreciate SOAS University of London's library for its very rich collection on Islamics generally. A substantial part of this inaugural lecture was written inside the two mentioned libraries. I thank everyone who provided any useful information that has really helped in the course of writing this lecture. Mr. Zubairu Daraso, and Mr. Hussein Oloyede of the National Insurance Commission, Mr. Napoleon Okosi, and Mr. Isa Yawu of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and Mr. Lukman Seriki of Sterling Bank PLC deserve special appreciation. I appreciate the representatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria here today, led by the Deputy Director of Financial Policy and Regulation Department. I also appreciate the NICOM, National Insurance Commission team, led by the Director, Mr. Leonard Aka, the Director of the Policy and Regulation of the National Insurance Commission. I appreciate members of the Pakata Patriots, Pakata Muslim Community, Pakata Development Association, Pakata Council of Ulama, Pakata Youth Ambassadors, Ubandawaki Youth Association, and Itam Development Association. To my wives, my sweethearts, Siddiqat Omatayo and Aisha Olamide, as well as our children, the delight of my eyes, Abu Bakr, Maryam, Abdul Majid, Aisha, Halima, Umar, Fatima, and Abdullah Jibreel. The desire of my life by the Almighty has been that of a man who must spend more hours in the service of God and humanity than what I spend with you at home as husband and father. I thank all of you for showing true love, understanding, and support that have taken me this far with Almighty Allah's mercy. I sincerely appreciate my in-laws, both at Ile Mamusano in Ilorin and Awudere royal family in Offa. They are all here for giving me the best friends in life, my best friends in life, and the strongest pillars of my nuclear family. I appreciate Mudir Darul Kitab wa Sunnah, Dr. Bashola Beru, and all other proprietors and students of various Islamia schools who are here present. I appreciate the representatives of various banks and cooperative societies for gracing this occasion. And to everyone who made it to this hall today or followed this lecture through other means, may Almighty Allah bless you all and return you safely to your various destinations. Ameen. And the conclusion of our prayer is to say, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Thank you, sir.
I believe we can do better than that for the inaugural lecturer. Say congratulations to Professor Abdul Majid Alam. Please, let's be seated. We just listened to the 196th in the series of inaugural lectures of the University of Ilorin. Just before, this is to let us know that immediately after then, we're going to have the session, and we'll have that of the Vice Chancellor, and to be followed by the university scholars, and we're going to also have the immediate family of the inaugural lecturer to follow, and we'll have our royal fathers and all our other invited guests. This is the order, please. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, it's over to you.
Thank everybody for bringing us this morning. Some names of the nations that are about to observed by many scholars of the cross. The representative of Central Bank Nigeria, led by Mr. Ibrahim Yuto, the Deputy Director. Also, representatives of the National Insurance Commission, led by Mr. Leonard Aka. Also, Honorable Ghana State Director of Appeal, Private Justice Scholar and Body. Retired Ghana Kwara State Director of Appeal, Private Justice A. Mali and I, Harun, and S.O. Commander Makinde Kwayarela, the Commandant of Forest Day 1, against Security and Civil Defense Corps. Commander Captain Analysis Asalo, Assistant Commander, against Security and Civil Defense Corps. American offices from the Friday High Office, American Armies of Friday Ìkíkìmọ́ ìwọlé Ìlọrin, ìkíkìmọ́ ìwọlé Ìlọrin, ìbálòpọ̀ ọ̀fà, ìlú àkọ́kọ́ Ìlọrin, ṣe àdúrà ìlú ìgbìmọ̀ ìjàmbá, Operator Media College of Education Ìlọrin. This is of Kwara State University, Adepo University, and Harvard University. Former and current national president, Ilorin Development Union, and Adi and Adhaj Porter. Father of Global Islam, Honor of the Honor of Muni Jimmy, Director of Public Education, Francis. National President of the Lawyers Association of Nigeria, Professor Ayi Adekunle. Chairman, Nigerian Association, Ilorin Branch. Independent Petroleum Marketers, Kwara State Chairman. Then the CEO, Easy Acquired, Lagos. The Zonal Manager, Southwest, and Ilorin, of Guys, PLC. The Secretary of Mandara Joe Nagadi, Olùkọ́tún Odúnlá. Sugera Mọ̀lẹ́sì ọba lọ́wọ́ Adéwọlá Adébísí Ráńkì, Olùkìkí ọ̀ Ìtìjì ìlà. Sugera Mọ̀lẹ́sì ọba Láti Mọ́lá Ráńkì Kọ́mọ̀sì, Olùkọ́ Òwúrọ̀. Sugera Mọ̀lẹ́sì ọba Láti everybody is appreciated for being with us. Thank you.
Shall we rise for the university anthem?